Hi, this is Mrs. Burrow and I'm going to talk to you today about developing your character. You should have lots of ideas about your character by now, and last lesson we thought about how to create an original voice. So what we're going to do today is gather all of those notes together, add as much detail as we possibly can to them, and then plan your piece of writing. So that's today's lesson. So, before you look at your notes, write down everything you can remember about your character's arcs. So what were their attractive qualities? How are they going to grow? What are their goals? And what do you think they've got to lose? Pause, make as many notes as you possibly can. Now, today we're going to develop your character, we're going to think about your character. And you need to know them, you need to know them better than anybody else so that you can convince your reader that they're worth reading about and that they could be a real person. So, look at your notes from last lesson. Now you've had some time, do you want to add anything or change anything to it? Keep going. How do you want your reader to feel about your character? How do you feel about your character? Next, get the picture of your character in front of you. This is another dimension. This is how they look, and we've not been concentrating very much on how they look. More about how they look reveals about them. So, anything you can add to your notes now. And it's time to bring your character to life. Thinking about their idiolect. So when you write from their perspective, you're going to have to use their idiolect. With Holden Caulfield, it's his informal, casual vocabulary, and the fact that his tone presents him as very sure of himself and very critical of others. He's always commenting on how others are phonies and they're not good people like him. Think about this. What word do you overuse? Do any of your friends have a distinctive way of speaking? And what can you borrow from people you know? So, what you're going to do now is write a short monologue from the perspective of your character, where they describe their favourite place to visit. Think about how they speak. Do they have an accent? Where are they from? Do they use any dialect words? You decide and think about this, but this is going to add a richness to your character and make them much, much more interesting. So I'd like you to pause now and spend 5 minutes writing this monologue. It doesn't need to be very neat, it doesn't need to be, you don't need to worry about punctuation or spelling or anything. This is just so you can create the voice of the character, okay? Welcome back. Now I want you to find someone to read your monologue to. And it's probably important that you do read it to them, because that way you'll be able to tell whether the voice is authentic or not and whether it works. When you read it in your head, you get a different perspective. So see if you can find someone just to read your work to. It shouldn't take very long at all, and get some feedback from them. Does the person you're reading to think the voice is credible? Do they think a real character, a real person could have said what you're saying? And could they give you any ideas? Could they give you one suggestion to improve your monologue? So just really quickly to take you back to show you how other writers do create original voices. Who said these three things? See if you can work it out. My mummy doesn't allow me to play down here, actually. Sounds quite polite. Quite young as well, because I've used mummy. Any ideas? Well, myself and somebody else are all of the same mind, so all three of us open fire. Somebody thinking about the past, isn't it? And then finally, I know loads of words like that, like the F word. So somebody who's got a dialect going, and somebody who's still quite young and frightened to say the F word, but thinks they're really grown up. Any ideas? And here are the answers. The first one is Edward from Blood Brothers. Remember, he's the lucky twin, if you want to use that term, who lives in that middle class household. The next one is Guardsman Tromans from Remains, the poem by Simon Armitage. And finally, the third one is Mickey from Blood Brothers. So you've got the boy who had a more rough upbringing from Blood Brothers. So how does their voice let you work this out? What do the writers use? And remember that Willie Russell wrote number 1 and 3, so he's created completely different voices for his two characters. So that's what your aim is when you're writing, okay? So now you're going to plan your writing. And what you're going to write next lesson is 600 words in which you introduce your character to your reader, which in this case would be a teacher. But hopefully you've got more readers in mind, so hopefully you could read it to someone you live with, or to your friends, or to a relative. So you're going to read this to more than one person, I hope. And what you're going to do is zoom in on the details of your character's personality. You're going to show, not tell, okay? So you're going to show us what your character's like. You're not going to tell us. You're not going to say, my character is tall and blonde and hates dogs. That's not what you're going to say. You're going to say, the man ducked as he went through the door. His hair the colour of the golden retriever that he was scowling at. There you go. So you're going to show us what he's like, or she's like. Okay. Next up, just to help you with this planning process, we've got some ideas for structuring your writing. If you can't stop planning, use one of these ideas. And remember, Holden begins by saying that he's not going to tell us about his background, which he then does. He then takes the reader to one particular day and spends 3 paragraphs giving the reader a very clear vision of what's happening around him. And he ends by taking the reader back into the past and the event that has led him to where he is today. So you could do that. You could start by directly addressing the reader and telling us what you're not going to do, and then do it. Eleanor introduces us to where she works, then takes the reader back 9 years to when she first started working there and what it's like before finally revealing what her job is. We then learn her weekly routine. Every day is the same, and she charts this from getting up to going to bed before she tells us what her weekend is like. And Sharon gives us a 1-paragraph overview of her life to date, and then the rest of the piece takes the reader through a few hours on one particular day, zooming in on a key incident that happens during that day. So you could use any one of those 3, or a mixture of those 3. So you could start with an overview of your life to date, and then go to the past and tell us a little bit about that. And your overview of your life to date could be what shape it's taken and the routines you have in your life. So there's some ideas if you need any. Okay. What I'd like you to do is spend the next 10 minutes planning. Okay, so thinking about what you're going to reveal about your character. Finalise your ideas for your content and structure. You've got your structure there on the slide before. Keep using your notes. What are you going to reveal in the very opening, and what are you going to hold back, okay? Remember, you're going to use this character time and again, so you don't need to get everything about them down there. Just choose what you think will really interest your reader about your character this time. Okay, happy drafting. See you soon.